Can everybody see my screen now? Can you see it, Iman?
Yes, I can see it. Looks good.
Okay, great. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to talk here on some things on the market conditions right now, as well as a lot of the policy things. A lot of things are changing here. And my email there, just keep track of that if you have anything to send me. And one thing I note, I do send out this livestock monitor, and we cover, dairy and alfalfa and things in here as well that get covered. And just like in this last issue, we had something on some hay stocks here, and I'll be talking on that. So if you want to be added to that, feel free to send me an email at thetronstad@ag.arizona.edu, or you could also just send me your email address in the chat just to me as well. But to get started here, I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about our global ending stocks here in particular. And you can see we've, for like soybeans, in terms of days of use, it's, projected to be going down. Also here for cotton as well, but you can see 1920, in particular with COVID, wasn't really kind here. With cotton, we increased from 244 days of use, 1819 to last year to 353. So maybe part of that is in the production as well, with India increasing their stocks as well, but maybe part of it is as well that if people are not going into work, they don't see the urge to buy a new outfit or go along those lines. When we had our record prices back here in 11-12, cotton was around farm price, almost 89 cents there. We still had fairly high stocks, but I guess the thing that was different back then was that China was the major driver in terms of buying, and you can see where the changes in the cotton stocks have occurred. It was largely there with China in that 11-12 period. Right now, you can see last year it wasn't China that was involved with increasing the stocks so much as other countries. And the other countries that were involved in that mainly were, as mentioned a little bit, India as well as Brazil. You can see India here last year increased a lot of their stocks of cotton, as well as Brazil down here in the purple. So there was, a slight somewhat reduction in China a little bit, but all of the increase basically did not come from China on our increase in our ending stocks there. So for our farm price here, this gives just the nominal farm price over time from 2000 up here through November. You can see, we're right around that right now in that, kind of that 65 cents at the farm price, and hopefully looking to rise here with things. And a lot of that's conditional though on the export market here in particular. With cotton, over 70% of our production is exported. And, with alfalfa or other large crop here in this field crop, we're around, 5% of that being exported. And those are very important, even though they're only 5% in the 7 Western states, account for most of the exports. So it's more like around 15% of the production in the 7 Western states, somewhat along the lines of corn, what's exported. The other big thing here, though, to note for 2020 in particular and 2019 has been the direct farm program payments. This here graph here, points out how we had a ramp up here in ad hoc payments here, basically with the market facilitation program payments here starting in 2018 and 2019 due to the difficulty in terms of trade, especially with China there on the tariffs that were implemented there. And then here in 2020, through the CARES Act, we had the CFAP 1 and the CFAP 2, resulting in over 40 billion here in direct payments to producers. And if you look at, the forecast for income here expected here for 2020, that's amounted to, almost 40% of the net farm income, and, a little over 20%, 25% of the net value added there in terms of agriculture. So I guess having an election year probably maybe jumped this a little more than usual. I guess votes can probably be bought still to a certain extent, but not enough votes were probably bought. But I'm sure the election year had some to do with that, and that'll be something to keep in mind when we're looking to next year in particular. With regards to China, just point out here in terms of looking at that, $40 billion here that was kind of initially targeted of the phase one exports there to China. You can see that's a much greater level than we would have been at here in 2018 and 19 when we were having difficulty, in terms of the tension with the Chinese trade relations in particular here. And you can see soybeans in particular, this bright green bar here on the bottom, they dominate in terms of the value of agricultural exports to China. And they were cut sharply in 18 and 19. So, a lot of the market facilitation program payments were tied to the Midwest with the soybeans and part of them. With regards to cotton, you can see cotton's this kind of purple here. In recent years, cotton hasn't been huge to China, but it's been fairly large and they're relatively for the cotton. And, I guess that's part of the hope in terms of moving the market right now is that there'll be some more buy-in there in terms of from the Chinese buyers there. How is China coming along with regards to their imports? This top one here shows all Chinese imports from the US, and you see they're about 58% of the target. If we look down here in the lower left on agriculture, they're about right at 64% in terms of through December, it's estimated here. You can see that's a little better than like for manufactured goods, particularly for energy. Agriculture is running much more on target than some of the others here. Again, here with regards to the market facilitation program rate, these are some of the payments here that went out. You can see in 2019 for cotton, it was like 26 cents per pound, and 6 cents per pound in 2018. So a lot of those were looked at with regards to kind of how the market fared over that time. There was nothing for alfalfa here in 2018, but there was a little bit, just a little over $2 a ton here in 2019. You can see that soybeans, accounted for a lot of it as with regards to as a percentage of the value of the commodity there in particular, much more so than in relation to corn on the market facilitation program. And with regards to the coronavirus food assistance program, this here shows on the left here that, there was, almost 1 million applications at the US level, $13.2 billion. You can see here sales commodities. These are like vegetables, nuts, non-program commodities. But then you can see soybeans is at the top there by milk, and then down to cotton here, 309 million. With regards to Arizona here, when we look at the spread here, we see that the acreage-based payments here, amount to a little over 14 million there. Dairy and livestock, so the acreage-based, that would include, cotton, the commodity crops, and the sales commodities. That's mainly reflecting what's gone payments for vegetables as well as nuts. Nuts were pretty good there. So I guess one interesting thing about in terms of the the CFAP payments here, the second round anyway, is that Arizona received like 0.5% of the US total there, but Arizona accounts for about, or in 2019, accounted for about 1.3% of the US ag product sales. So, some of our crops and commodities did not fare as well, I guess you might say, as other products in there. And part of that is in relation to our alfalfa as well. And we'll get to that in a little bit. When we look here at I guess the upcoming December 21 contract here, this shows how we've kind of moved over time in terms of when the contract started here in January 2019. It was around that, just a little above 75 cents there. And then we went kind of declined down. You can see what happened here with regards to COVID. We had a sharp drop off here, down to, the mid 50s here in the futures price, quite a drop there. And then we've had a steady climb back up here to where, just as last Monday here, we're up to, about 78, 79 cents there per pound on the December futures there. I guess with regards to kind of the outlook for plantings here coming up this year, this here graph shows the ratio of December corn futures, dollars per bushel, divided by the cotton futures in cents per pound. So as corn futures are higher, we move over on the right here. The idea being we plant more corn relative to cotton, the higher the price, or we plant less cotton here, more corn. And you can see this kind of the slope here of, looking at prices and the stocks or in plantings over the last 20 years. If we look at 18, 19, and 20, you can see we were all kind of around this ratio here, pretty close to around the 5.5 on that ratio. We've had a pretty good drop though in cotton. You can see from 19 to 13.8 to down to around 12.2 as to where we'll be this next year. This is the price ratio as of Monday, around 5.6. I mean, some of the intentions are that we'd be somewhere around this, probably drop even more from last year, be around this, 11.2 range. If we look here at the cotton planting estimates here by the cotton grower, they do a survey. NASS won't come out with their survey until like March and planting intentions, but they do this November, December kind of survey. And the intentions there have cotton plantings down for the US, about 4.7%, the West down about 2.2%, and Arizona being down just about 1.5%. Actually, a little bit less expected to be down than even like Texas here, 1.7%. You see the Mid-South is where you see kind of the most of the decline in Mississippi, and Tennessee, and Arkansas in particular, showing a big drop there in terms of expected plantings for the upcoming year here. So what do we see in terms of farm price levels? Expected. This is the forecast here that is made by USDA out of their January report. You can see that for cotton, they're showing basically an increase here from 59.6 cents up to 68 cents, about 14% increase there. It's nothing like soybeans, where they have expecting like a 34% increase going up there, but it's in line almost with corn. Corn is expected to have about an 18% increase in price there, and wheat up about 6%, going from 4.58 a bushel up to 4.85. So, this is out of their January report here, trying to pull things together on the latest estimates of where prices would be heading, given current stock situations and demand uses on the horizon. Of course, this will no doubt adjust as we move forward. I just throw this graph up on here just to show, how we've really shifted a lot from cotton being kind of the largest crop in the state in the 70s here, or right up there top, to, shifting a lot of that to alfalfa production. And most of that production is shifted, into the central Arizona counties, the Colorado River counties and the rest of Arizona's, especially the Colorado River counties, La Paz, Parker, they've been pretty stable in terms of their acreage of alfalfa. And most of the increase here has come from the central Arizona counties there. What is driving, I guess, some of that increase? Well, it's our population as well, but we can see exports here have also, moved up kind of over this same period as we increase here in the state. And, even though we may are not exporting a lot of our production here from Arizona as much as, say, California, that does impact in terms of our market being right next to California. A couple things to note here on the graph in terms of, you see here that China, wasn't, importing any alfalfa before 2008, and they've moved to where they're, the largest, by far, the largest importer of alfalfa from the U.S., and that's primarily coming from the West now. Supplying over 95% of the U.S.'s exports. In terms of the value as well, it just kind of reflects the quantities. You can see as well that, China has jumped up there and being a major purchaser of alfalfa. And the reason for that is largely because China shifted from where they had a very fragmented dairy industry, producing under very small herds, to where they're now producing a lot of their production on the dairy side from, modern large scale dairies that, demand forage, and they're not able to produce all of their forage to meet for those dairies. So that's one of the reasons we've seen such an increase there, with all of that basically being targeted for their dairy industry. So you can see in total, the exports of alfalfa here are, almost $1 billion, but not quite here on an annual basis. When we look at kind of the relative price of alfalfa relative to like corn and soybeans, it just shows on this graph here. You can see alfalfa here in the green here, soybeans here in the orange, and corn in the yellow here. But when we had kind of the ethanol boom here in, kind of through 08, 07, it started some and then continued on here, we would see corn prices on a dollars per ton basis that would be above alfalfa. But you can see recently here, alfalfa's, been almost, double the price here of corn, on the dent corn on a grain basis in recent years here. And if we also look at it in terms of prices with regards to the farm prices versus the export price, Arizona alfalfa price here on this dotted line, you can see in 2012 here, we had a period here where we were right up there next to the, what it was going for in terms of being compressed and on the dock. But in general, we do run, almost, $100 a ton less than what it's going for on the boat, all compressed and everything. And this orange line out here, this gives what was required in the 2018 Farm Bill to record what the dairy quality hay is bringing there, using kind of the 5-state region there from the most 5 states there. So I'll just run through here, try to finish up so we don't get too far behind here with time. But this gives a change in terms of alfalfa production from 2019 to 2020. You can see Arizona here, we were down like about 5%. And Nevada was off, 30% there, quite a bit off. So in the West here, most of the states were off except for Washington. Again, these 7 Western states here, account for virtually all the exports. In terms of total hay acres, including the grass hay and alfalfa hay, see Arizona comes in here around 310,000 acres. He's even just a little bit under Nevada here, and about not quite a third of what California has. But you can see Montana and Idaho are the largest hay producers, acreage other than Texas here. Texas is all uh, other hay, basically. A lot of that is wild hay. You look here, if we look at alfalfa acres here, uh, they only have 110,000. So there's not a lot of alfalfa production here for dairies here in Texas. Again, as mentioned, Montana and Idaho, they lead in terms of production right now. California used to lead, but California is behind them just in terms of tonnage there. When we look at the percentage change in hay stocks here, this here is from 19 to 20. You can see Arizona was actually up a bit, and California, a huge drop here in Nevada though, and New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah in terms of our surrounding states. This graph here is probably maybe the most important in the sense that the change in new seedings here is the lowest it's been since 1973, when we had really high grain prices. You can see here our new seedings are down here uh, for 2020, 27%. They're also down here over in Nevada and New Mexico, 33%. They're up here in Texas, but recall Texas doesn't really have any, much for alfalfa. So I mean, I think this is going to be bullish for alfalfa prices here, for probably a few years anyway, because we're just not going to see that huge of an increase, I don't think, in plantings in just 1 year, in terms of people working into their crop rotations and everything else. So, I think that's a bright side for alfalfa here right now. I guess to just kind of wrap things up here, I guess you'd say, the markets, are tending to be on the rise now, in part due to, China buying a lot, and, the southern hemisphere of South America and the crops, and especially in the soybeans, maybe being a little short. I think that's something positive here. I guess with regards to direct farm payments, we're not in an election year this year, so I don't know what's going to happen in terms of continuing on any of the CFAP payments or whatnot. I do know though that there's still a possibility to sign up through, I believe it's February 19th, for some of the CFAP payments if you have not done that already. The other thing to keep in mind is that the sales closing date with Risk Management Agency is the end of February here. So, preventive planning is something that if you don't have, might be something to consider. Mike mentioned that the, expected inflow at Lake Mead there was what, around 51% at the water level. So, maybe it won't be this year, but, it's just a matter of time, I think, before we get pulled back, restricted on irrigation water coming out of the Colorado River. And having prevented planning from as part of your crop insurance plan, I think is something that I wouldn't put off too long, because who knows when we could get up there to where we're prevented from irrigating here, especially on the alfalfa that we might have had planted out there. And it'd be good to have something to fall back on if that becomes the case. While it's nice to have some rain, it's not going to make up for the long-term shortage, as Mike was saying. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I guess you can use the chat box or send me an email, and we'll move